Hi, this is Dave with Market Trading Concepts, closing out the week for Friday, June the 1st, 2012. I'm recording this video on Saturday, June the 2nd, 2012, and this video is going to focus on the metals closing out the week. So let's take a look, starting with gold, at the weekly chart. In last week's video, I just wanted to be sure that my recap was accurate and that I am telling the same story. So I went through last week's video and just to confirm, and I was looking at in last week's video as I thought, memory wise, but I just wanted to confirm, so I just rewatched what I said in last week's video, and I was really looking at this 1545 level as a potential accumulation area and as a support level. I wasn't really looking to buy it in any sense, but I really didn't expect any downside from that level. And as you can see here, it tested it, and this week it closed right off of those levels. And I think on Friday we had a 60, I think we had like a $60 or something. I believe it was about $60 an ounce move to the upside, which was a pretty big move. Within the context of these weekly bars, you can see there's a lot of, huge range bars, but Friday had a pretty big move of $60 an ounce or so up. So I wasn't really interested in the downside in last week's video. I think that made a lot of sense. This 1545 level was a pretty key support level. We identified this level, here, and then, it's not a hindsight level. This is a key level, and we knew that. So let's take a look at the daily chart just to get an idea of and recap why we thought that. So looking at the daily chart, then we had a Darvas box forming on the daily chart, and we were talking about a potential higher low coming into play here. So this level here around the just below the 1545 level that we identified on the weekly chart. I mean, it did slip through that level somewhat, but we felt that it would hold somewhere in here. We hit a target here on this Darvas squeeze short on the daily chart around here, and that's why we were expecting, some kind of support unless we entered into an extreme market situation. So when we looked at this target being met, it's slipping a little bit below, but not really decisively moving below it. We were expecting some support in that level. We got a bounce. The second bounce here is what we were really looking at last week, and we were looking at this as a potential higher low. So that really did kind of come into play. Even though we moved a little bit below it, it was really a retest of these lows, and it didn't go below this low. So this retest here held, and we actually pushed right into the 21 period moving average, and then we pushed up and tested this trend line, this downtrend line, and we actually closed fairly close to the highs on Friday. And as you can see, we pushed above this trend line and we closed fairly close to the highs. So we weren't necessarily expecting such an extreme move like that, but we really weren't expecting any more downside. So that kind of played out. That kind of played out nicely. And oops, I apologize. I think I paused the video there, but I'll try and pick up where I think I left off. So we closed close to the highs here in gold. We weren't really expecting this kind of a violent move higher, but we weren't really expecting much of a move lower. So that said, let's take a look at silver. I think gold is really leading the move here in terms of the price action and understanding where the price might be going. But let's take a look at silver and see if it's telling us the same story. So the silver futures here, now we don't have any fresh signals on these markets. We're just kind of going based on chart analysis and price action. So if you look at the weekly chart of silver, is kind of the same situation. You have these potential areas of accumulation in and around, these levels, and you have these, like this weekly bar here looks like accumulation. because it closed more than 50% off the highs, or off the lows rather, and close to the highs. And you had that, for 3 weeks in a row. So you can see on the close of this week that silver closed close to the highs on the week. So with that in mind, let's expand out the daily chart and just have a look at what's going on here. As you can see, it's a little bit sloppy, but let me expand it in here. You can see the same kind of situation took place as gold, although gold chart-wise is a lot stronger, or appears to be a lot stronger. You had this low here. You had these targets met a lot higher and it slipped through, but we weren't really expecting much downside below, the 2706 level, although you did spike below it. But then you came back up, you tested it. We were saying that this looked like the higher low that might be put in place, or potentially we were looking for a break above this level. So what we actually had happen here was a retest of that level here, and it actually tested, I think, a little bit higher, but it didn't actually yet push through these highs, through this Darvas box or through this swing point high. So technically, you don't have a higher high in place technically, but what you do have is a potential, you have potential structural low area that seems to be holding. And if we use gold kind of as a proxy, you would expect that if gold is going to hold, that the silver might actually break the 21 EMA. I mean, at this point in time, it's only tested the 21 EMA, but that it might break the 21 EMA and come up and test this trend line. And from there, we really don't know where it's going to go. If it's going to come back down and break these lows, or come back up and sort of maybe start to push a little bit higher. So at this point in time, this is a potentially early stage reversal, which may or may not hold. We don't really know. I think it makes the most sense not to try to anticipate where it's going to go, but to wait for a new structure to kind of set up. If we get a break below these key low areas, and we get a fresh signal, then we'll have no choice but to trade that. But I think in the short term, we put in a bottom, and we need to see if it is going to push higher and put in some kind of a structure as such, in terms of like a higher structure. So that in mind, the silver and the gold look like they put in interim bottoms. Let's take a look at the copper market and see what the copper market is telling us now. On the weekly chart, you can see here on the left, it looks like, let me just grab a pen, it looks like it fired a Darvas squeeze short on the weekly chart. So you can see here, here was the signal here that fired, and we already hit this target here around this level of, I'm going to guess it's about $3.40. Okay, so, and now we've actually pushed below there and we've extended beyond that target. At this point in time, I wouldn't want to be a shorter of copper. I wouldn't want to be short copper below this target level, or actually down here in terms of fresh entries. But structurally, it looks like we're to the downside. If you look at the daily chart, you have a structure in place here, but I wouldn't want to be, shorting the lows hoping it's going to go lower kind of thing. I think if you got to move back into this 21 period exponential moving average, it would make sense to consider with a valid entry and valid risk parameters, consider maybe a push into this level and a possible continuation or retracement at the 21 EMA. But at this point in time, looking at the gold and the silver, I don't really like the short side at this point in time. But when the price action unfolds, you would have to reevaluate it at that point in time. That said, I think if you moved above the high of this bar here or the high of this bar here, I think all bets to the short side are off. So I hope that helps. That's a look at metals. I covered the gold, the silver, and the copper. And in summary, I really don't like the downside at this point anymore. In watch and listen mode, and looking to see if the overall structure of the gold and silver and copper, I mean basically of the metal markets, if they're going to kind of find a bottom and look at possibly pushing higher. So I don't like the short side. I don't necessarily like the long side either. I kind of like the watch and wait mode. So I hope that helps, and I will look forward to seeing you at next week's video.